Hi there, and thanks for joining us here today on the Simple Money podcast. I'm John Thompson. This is my son.
Hello, I am David Thompson.
Great. And just a matter of quick background, we work together in financial services, more specifically in the mortgage advice and origination business. We do a lot of advice around how to manage your liabilities, how to blend your real estate and mortgage debts with your other abilities to grow your wealth and things like that. Do a lot of work with financial planners and other financial professionals. Today, we thought it'd be fun to talk about goal setting, right? And the different perspectives that I would have as a 30-some-year veteran in professional business, and then David's perspective as someone who's now a handful of years into his professional career. So we're going to be talking about goal setting. So let me ask you this, Dave. So when you hear the word goal setting, what's your first reaction to just that entire idea and concept of goal setting? What's it make you think of?
My first reaction would be some sort of achievement or success, because I think that we each set goals for, a reason, and then we want to achieve those, and it leads to some sort of other success, or we set that goal for a reason. So that would be the first thing that pops in my mind about a goal or a goal setting.
Do you think there are, or have you run into people that are fearful of setting goals?
I don't think I've run into anybody that's fearful of setting goals, but I'm sure they're out there somewhere.
Well, good. Okay. So, and the reason I ask you is that maybe this is one of those perspective generational things that might be quite different between us, because I can tell you that the entire idea of, obviously goal setting is not new. The idea of goal setting in a very specific way and all the tools that are available around all of us on a daily basis, and just the entire idea of putting things down and saying, I'm going to move towards that, is, I still think, relatively new. And I can tell you that going back to the beginning of my career, it was not something I was introduced to at all. People didn't talk about goals that way. And I don't know if this is, again, a generational thing. Yeah, maybe you set a goal. I think when I was growing up, it seemed more about an idea or a concept, like, hey, I want to have a house. Okay, is that a goal, or is that just a wish or an aspiration? Right. I think that's potentially the difference between when I grew up and maybe how you're growing up. So I think there are people that are very fearful, quite honestly. And maybe, again, it's more my generation of setting goals, because goals mean that you might not reach those goals.
Yeah.
And you're disappointed and those kinds of things. So maybe it's a totally different perspective. I mean, thoughts?
Yeah, it could be a different perspective. I also think that, maybe we're just exposed to much, maybe technology and different types of management systems for our goals. And we have been that way for, at least for high school and college and whatnot. There were so many different things thrown away that would manage at least our daily lives. And a lot of that is online. And then, going to the professional career, every other ad you see is for some sort of management or a way to achieve your goals. So, I think it's much more in our face now, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure you're spot on, because certainly in high school and even in college, quite frankly. And, I went to a fairly large, well-known university. We didn't really talk about this kind of stuff. I mean, you were given something to get done and you had a time frame. And so you knew you had to get there, but no one helped you get there, right? It was really up to you to figure out how to get to that end result somewhere, as it were. So I do think it's different, because thinking through your high school and stuff, they really helped you kind of get to some of those kind of things.
Yeah, exactly.
So why do people fail? Why do sometimes people not achieve their goals? And is that important or not important?
Yeah, I think it's common to fail or not to reach your goal. And I don't think that's necessarily a huge problem in most cases. I think the important thing is that we set the goal and we work to achieve it. And we're doing something disciplined to achieve that goal. And whether or not we get there, I think, is irrelevant as long as we made progress towards it. And why do we fail? I think we fail because we don't have that discipline to get there. We didn't set an actionable and reliable and kind of simple to follow plan to achieve that goal. We can say that we have some sort of goal, and it could be a lofty goal or not lofty, but if you don't have something that's keeping us moving towards achieving that goal on a daily basis or monthly or weekly, even yearly, or it depends how long the time frame is, we're never going to get there. And so I think being reminded of the ultimate goal and then breaking it down on a way to get there eventually is something that we focus on. And if we don't achieve it in that time frame, then maybe it's readjusting expectations to get there eventually.
Yeah, that's good. What does discipline mean to you? What do you, if someone asks you what is discipline? What's it mean to you?
Discipline, yeah, I think it was sticking to some sort of schedule or sticking to a routine. Once you're in a routine and doing something, you're going to stick in that routine. It becomes habitual and whatnot. But as soon as you break that, you become, oh, I got this going on, or I got that going on, and I don't want to do that. It's just using the gym as an example, going to work out. Once you're in the routine of getting up every morning, you're more likely to go to the gym every day. And when you do miss a day, you kind of feel bad about it. But when you're not in that routine, not doing that, and it's not a habit of getting up early and going to the gym, you don't even think twice about going or not going, because it's just not part of your daily exercise and daily life.
Yeah. And I think from my perspective, discipline habits in some ways go together, right? We know how to walk. We know how to breathe. We know how to brush our teeth. We know how to wash our hair. We know how to put our shoes on and these kind of things. And while these may seem like really trivial things, the first time you did them, they were not so trivial. And so they become habits over time. And so I can't remember who has a saying, what is it? Excellence is not then the outcome, but the process, right? Something like excellence is just a habit, right? And so, I don't think we're striving for perfection by any stretch, but excellence is a habit. And doing things well and being focused on it is important. And I like that you said that you do fail. We're not going to get there every single day. And so you kind of go through that process and going forward with it. But I find that, at least for me, getting to that point where the habits really just become part of what you're doing every single day in your discipline. And it's not, I'd love to say that we have it dialed in. We don't. But, of being aware of when your discipline or your habit is off track is just as important as actually sitting up front. I think just being aware of those kind of things, and awareness and understanding that, okay, so where have we gone and how do we get back to where we were trying to get to originally is really critical for people to understand that. Do you have any thoughts around that process of getting back in alignment with your goals that you've experienced kind of in your work and in your days?
The process of getting back in alignment, I'm not sure, at least for us, we break it down, or more recently breaking it down by, small achievable things on a weekly and daily basis. That way, to reach the overarching goal, you're doing something every day to get that goal. And not every day and not every week you do that. But at least, yeah, like you said, being aware that you're trying to get there or working on it on a daily basis is important. Yeah.
Yeah, and what Dave's referring to is the process, at least internally, that we use within our business, where we set really 90-day chunks of priorities, right? So we actually call them priorities as opposed to goals, but that's what they really are. They're goals, but they're priorities. And so priorities are things that you're working on in a time frame, and we choose 90 days because 90 days is enough time to be able to get something pretty significant done, but not long enough that if you find that it's not relevant anymore, or you just can't quite get traction around it, that you haven't really lost a lot of time. Because there's a lot of things we all work on every single day and distractions and so forth. But if you have a top 3 or 4 priorities and you're going through your day and you know that those are your priorities and you have some tasks underneath those that you need to move towards that priority, then you have a way of organizing your time and your energy, more importantly, your energy, to be able to get those things done. And it works really well. And that process, by the way, is taught in a multitude of different books, one of which is Traction by Gino Wickman. The Rockefeller Habits is another wonderful book by Vern Harnish, and The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy are books that we use within our business and our practice. But those things relate to personal life. So Dave, how have you taken any of those things that we've implemented in our business? Have you taken any of those things and used them in your personal life?
Sure. Yeah, I have. I think so. I mean, just one of the things that I've heard or that I've read is that, just by putting your goal on a piece of paper, you're way more likely to achieve the goal. And so I guess in my personal life, even if I don't put it on a piece of paper or not, I tell somebody about it. I tell a friend or a buddy or somebody about it. And, then at least then it's somebody else in my ear and kind of holding me accountable and whatnot to achieve that goal. So yeah, of course it carries over to my personal life, probably not as structured as business as I think, but so yeah, whether that's a goal of sports or golf, trying to get to a certain score, or it's in the gym or whatever it is. So yeah, for sure it carries over into my personal life.
Great. All right. And then are there any specific tools that you want to kind of share? Can we talk about?
That's a good one. Tools, at least for my daily tracking tools. We've talked about time blocking, and I know time's important when it comes to setting goals. So you set aside a certain amount of time to work on a project or what it might be, and kind of zooming out a little farther than that from a daily to weekly basis. I could have a general time block for the whole week. That way I'm in a consistent flow, and hey, it's Wednesday and 2:00, it's time to work on this. So there's time blocking that we work on. And from there, we get into our kind of daily tasks. What are the daily tasks that you just can't get away from that you have to do? Kind of write those down in a priority order. What's the most important thing I need to get done? And what's something that, maybe I'd like to get done, but can't get done. And so kind of put it in a list in that kind of order, that way, work on it that way and get the most important things done. And of course, you kind of touched on our 90-day planning, and then zooming out even farther, there's the year and 3-year and 5-year goals, or even life plans that we've done before, which, they're extensive and I think they're great. And of course it allows, life changes. So there's always things that don't go your way, aren't what you expected. But if you have some sort of idea of how you envisioned it, at least it's easy to pivot and adjust to those things.
You brought up time blocking, and I've found over my years as a practitioner of time blocking, when I bring it up with a lot of other people and other professionals and have tried to help other business partners and so forth with it, I've actually personally found a lot of resistance to it. There are people that feel like that method of discipline is restricting. They need to be open to the flow of the day. They need to be open to the flow of the week and be available and so forth. And all I hear when someone tells me that is, you like your life to be reactive. And one of the sayings that I'll probably get wrong again is, if you're not taking control of your day, if I don't have control of my day, if David doesn't have control of his day, then someone else does, right? Because then we're responding to other people's wishes and dreams and whatever they do, which is okay at times. But the reality is, if we want to live the life we want to live, then I believe it's critical to sort of have control of as much of your day kind of as you can. Have you found time blocking to be restrictive? Or
of course, I guess the more you work on it, the more freeing it can be. And it was incredibly difficult, and still find it difficult to stay to a consistent time block because, the phone does ring or somebody does have a question or whatnot, and you get distracted. But no, I think when you're consistently doing it and you can stick to it, whether that's for a week or a month or a day, find that you get your stuff done more efficiently. So yeah, I think if you commit to it, it's freeing and not restrictive, because I think you're able to be more proactive too when you're time blocking. You kind of have a set way you envisioned your day, and that's how you want it to be, and you can work on things at a certain time, and that's great. So you don't have to get distracted by doing 8 things at once, and those things might take you longer to do because you're kind of hopping all over the place. But if you're focused on one thing, you're going to get it more dialed in, more focused, and be more efficient at getting that thing done.
Yeah, I think that the way the brain works, we cycle into and out of activities. And so I'll use the example of creating what we call internally a borrow smart plan. So would we plan for a client that looks at their entire picture and then creates a written document that we then share with the client. And so I've found that when you bundle similar activities together, and get into that flow. And we know, everyone knows this, right? We've all experienced a flow state where you start doing something and all of a sudden you're flowing and the time just goes. And you've been doing something for 2 or 3 hours and it felt like 10 minutes, right? We'd all love to be in that state all the time. It's probably not realistic. But my point about the going into and out of it is that if you bundle your activities, get the same sort of activities in the same time frame or time block, the first one might take you 5 minutes. The second one might take you 3 minutes, and then 2 minutes, and 1 minute. And suddenly you got 10 of these things done. And if you'd done them individually, those 10 things would have taken you a total of 50 minutes, but you got it done in 22 minutes, just as an example. So, I'll leave it by saying these are concepts that I think most humans understand because they fall into and out of it, but they aren't completely aware of it all the time. And so, we're happy to discuss those things and share them with you as we're learning, but at the same time as well. Any other comments on that?
Yeah, I think one thing's important to mention about a time block too is you can have a block of time that's set aside to be semi-reactive and whatnot, to have some unstructured time, and you're not necessarily working on a project, and that's okay. And that's part of my time a lot of days, because sometimes business does call for other things and whatnot, or the days call for other things that you just can't anticipate. So I think it's okay to have some of those blocks built in already. That way, eventually you can phase them out, but as you're getting used to it, you have those times to kind of be reactive and whatnot.
That's a great point. Yeah. And we call it, what do you call it? Remember what we call it?
White time.
White time. So great. Anyway. So that's great. I think we can wrap up there. I mean, time is precious. Setting goals is precious and important. And if you're not setting goals, and my guess is someone else is setting them for you, and they might be achieving their goals using your time. So just keep that in mind. And David, why don't you leave us with a final comment? And we appreciate you all checking out. Reach out anytime to learn about any tools we use, and we can go from there.
Sure. Yeah. My final comment, I'll read a quick quote from Michelangelo about setting goals. The greatest danger for most of us is that our aim is not too high and we miss it, but that it is too low to reach it. So you don't want to set a goal too low and then you don't achieve your full potential. So I'll leave us with that.
That's a great one, Dave. Thank you very much.